You know, when you look at an academic transcript, it's easy to just see a list of subjects and numbers. But if you really know how to read between the lines, it's so much more than that. It's a story. It's a story of someone's strengths, their struggles, and sometimes some really unexpected twists. Today, we're going to decode one of those stories.
And that's a question we really ought to ask ourselves, right? Because behind every single letter grade, every number, there's a real person, a unique set of skills, and a whole context that one single number, that GPA, can never ever fully capture.
So in this breakdown, we're going to peel back the layers of one complete academic record. We're not just going to glance at the final score. No, we're digging deep, looking for the patterns in the data to truly understand the journey, and most importantly, figure out a plan for what comes next.
So, let's meet the person at the center of this story, Gobal Krishnan V. He's an electronics and communication engineering student, and his transcript covers 8 intense semesters of study. And trust me, it has a fascinating story to tell.
Okay, so let's jump right in. In his very first year, Gobal comes out of the gate pretty strong. He's got A grades in foundational courses like math and engineering graphics. But look closer. He also scores an S grade, that's the highest you can get, in his practical labs. And then, we see the first little hint of a challenge, an E grade, which is the lowest possible pass in the theory-heavy electric circuits course. And just like that, a theme starts to emerge. We see this clear split, right? On one hand, you have this exceptional top-tier performance when the work is hands-on and practical. And on the other, a real struggle when it comes to pure theory. This isn't just about good grades and bad grades. It's a huge clue about his natural talents and learning style.
Let's see if this continues. We move into the second year, and wow, this pattern doesn't just continue, it gets even more obvious. We're seeing E grades in really abstract subjects like signals and systems and probability. But then you look at the labs, digital electronics, circuit simulation, linear integrated circuits, and what do you see? Perfect S grades, every single time.
I mean, this just paints such a clear picture, doesn't it? This is the profile of a practical thinker, a doer. Here's a student who absolutely thrives when he can build things, test them, and simulate them. The data is consistently telling us this is an engineer who understands electronics best by doing, not just by reading about it in a textbook. Okay, just look at this side by side. It's night and day. On the left, you've got all these challenging theoretical courses. On the right, they're practical lab counterparts, all with top marks. This isn't a fluke. It's the defining characteristic of his entire academic journey. The data is practically screaming. This guy has real hands-on talent.
And honestly, we don't even need to walk through every single course because this exact same story plays out over and over again through the 5th, 6th, and 7th semesters. Year after year, the transcript just keeps reinforcing this core identity. A gifted practical engineer who finds abstract theory to be a major hurdle.
All right, this is it. This brings us to the grand finale of his academic journey, the final semester. Now, I want you to pay close attention to that project work. It's worth 6 credits. That's double most of the other courses. This makes it the single most important, most heavily weighted component of his entire degree. This is supposed to be the ultimate test.
So what grade did he get? A perfect S, a 10 out of 10. And you know, based on everything we've seen, this makes total sense, right? It's the ultimate practical assignment, and he completely aced it. This should be the triumphant final chapter, the ultimate validation of all his hands-on skills.
But this is where the story takes a really sharp, unexpected, and frankly disturbing turn. Because the source material for this whole analysis contains a statement that forces us to question everything about that perfect score. This is a direct quote from the source document, and it's a really serious allegation. It claims that the college instructed students that they had to buy their final year projects from an outside business, and if they didn't, they were threatened with failing. And the statement doesn't mince words. It says flat out that the project work, the one that got that perfect score, was not his own, and that it was bought because he was forced to. Suddenly, his entire academic record, and especially that perfect S grade, looks completely different. So, after all that, 4 years of study, a clear pattern of practical excellence, and this huge controversy hanging over his final project, what's the bottom line? A final cumulative grade point average of 7.55.
And according to the university's rules, that 7.55 CGPA officially earns him a second-class degree. It's a formal final label stamped on his entire engineering education.
But that brings us back to our big question, doesn't it? Knowing everything we know now, what does that number, that label, really tell us? Does it capture the story of the brilliant lab student, the struggling theorist, or the student caught in a deeply problematic situation?
The source material doesn't just leave us with a problem, though. It actually asks for a solution, a path forward. It asks for a proper plan to get a job in the electronics industry. How do you take this incredibly complex story and turn it into a career?
Well, based on our analysis, here's a game plan. Step 1, you have to leverage those undeniable strengths. That means putting those 10+ lab courses with the S&A grades front and center on the resume. Step 2 is huge. Build a new portfolio of personal projects to give employers undeniable proof of your skill. 3, target the right jobs, roles that are practical and hands-on. And finally, step 4, prepare to tell your story, but do it strategically.
And this is the really crucial part, right? It's all about taking control of the narrative. In a job interview, the conversation shouldn't be about the A grades. It has to be about the consistent S grades in the labs. It's all about shifting the focus from the theoretical struggles to your proven, practical successes and using that new portfolio as the ultimate evidence.
So if you're wondering where to put your energy, this chart breaks it down perfectly. The vast majority of your time, a full 70%, should be dedicated to creating tangible proof of what you can do. That means building new projects and sharpening those practical skills. That becomes your new story, and it makes the old transcript just a footnote.
Ultimately, what this whole analysis really shows is that a transcript is just the beginning of the story. It gives you the raw data, for sure, but it doesn't get to write the conclusion. It's a tool to help you build a strategy, not some final judgment on what you're capable of achieving.
And that leaves us with one final, much bigger question. This one student's story shines a pretty bright light on some potentially huge systemic issues. It really forces us to ask, are our educational systems doing enough to measure and reward hands-on talent? And maybe more importantly, what systems do we need to put in place to make sure that academic work is always a true measure of a student's own ability?